Aloha, welcome to the Exposed Show. My name is Molly Willson, and I am here to expose you to information and new ideas on alternative ways of living. On this show, you'll hear from some pretty cool guests who talk about personal development, health and wellness, spirituality, and relationships. I hope to share with you valuable conversations that build perspective and support your personal journey towards a life of meaning and more. If you're here to evolve, these insightful interviews and self-reflection stories will inspire you to become more open-minded and accepting of the world we live in today. Make sure you subscribe to the show to stay up to date on what's being exposed. Aloha, welcome to the show. Today, I want to introduce the conversation about change. I want to talk about what that looks like and how we can move through change more successfully with full resilience and integrity. Now, change in daily life is inevitable. It's happening everywhere around us, whether we want it to or not. But change can mean different things for different people. Change can sometimes look like a change in job, a change in location, a change in relationships, or a change in mindset, a change in perspective, or a change in inspiration. All of those things are internal motivators that come and initiate change from within. For me, I like to say that any change means growth and opportunity for maturing. Even if it is painful or uncomfortable at first, change can offer us a new perspective and new experience to life. Now, as I mentioned, change is inevitable, and that there's two types of change happening in our lives. First is the change by choice. This is that internal desire, the will or inspiration to seek out something different. The other, on contrast here, is the change that happens out of our control. This is the external changes that are happening in our environment, which we must accept and adjust to in order to continue living our lives. So for this episode, I'm going to focus on the internal change and how we can embrace our internal motivation to match our external world. And I'm going to start off by saying that in order to successfully move through change, we need to be aware of what it is that's changing and evolving in us. Whether it is a mindset practice we want to change or grow from, or a habit we want to begin, we need to know what it is that we want to improve in our lives. So in this show, I'm talking about why people struggle with change, and I offer 5 steps to move through the internal change successfully to be more resilient in our daily lives. This is a huge part in personal development because change, internal change or external change, requires a conscious intention to grow. It requires our attention to adapt into a new way of living. And bringing back to that awareness, it requires us to get clear on the ways we want to live our lives. In the area of personal development, internal change requires 2 things: the willingness and the consistent effort towards our goal. So with those 2 basic skills, you can transform your thoughts, your habits, and behaviors that influence your overall experience in life. With that willingness and consistent effort towards your vision or your goal or your practice that you want to enhance in your life, you will eventually start to see the progress in that specific area. Now, let's talk about why change is so hard for people. Well, first off, change is scary. the unknown or the ambiguity, the unfamiliar territory is scary for a lot of us. But just because it's scary doesn't mean it is impossible. I mean, look back at your life and the moments that have been scary for you and look at the ways you've moved through it. Just take that second to check in and reflect on, damn, yeah, you've probably been through some shit if you're listening to this podcast or this show, and you're still here and growing and on the right path to self-improvement. So again, it's not impossible just because it's scary. It's just this opportunity for growth and maturing. So the two reasons why people struggle with change is, number one, that they're scared. This is huge and it can be interpreted in so many different ways, but people struggle with this idea of change because they're afraid of being left out. Now, this kind of goes back to a protective mechanism of belongingness that we accumulate when we are young. And when we get older, we are meant to be in connection with people. We are meant to have associations and contribute into a community. But if we are outgrowing the community and places that we're in, the fear of disconnection can keep us from moving through change. The fear of being alone and the fear that people won't love or accept you when you step out of what's familiar and what's comfortable and the ways you were showing up in the world. So people who struggle with change, they form these associations with their identity of who they are, and breaking away from that is scary. And there's a lot of resistance towards trying new things simply because of that fear of loneliness or the fear of disconnection or the fear of not being accepted. So the second reason why people struggle with change is that they lack the awareness. They lack the exposure and don't know the other options. I see this a lot when I lived in a small town, and the mindset is just narrow, and it's because there's not a lot of diversity presented to them, and there aren't a lot of people who are willing to go seek that out. So not having the perspective or the alternatives can really block people from moving into change more easily and moving into a change that is going to bring them more joy into their lives. So this is where knowledge and education play a huge role in bringing awareness to other options available so people can make different choices. So, regardless of your experience, you are presented with several opportunities for change and growth. Sometimes, like I mentioned before, it could be change out of a job, out of a location, into a new relationship, out of a relationship, or into different hobbies and activities that you want to pursue. And these are all driven by that internal motivation. Aside again from the external factors that may happen, we're talking specifically about the internal motivations. Like you recognize this relationship is no longer serving you, so you have that internal motivation, that desire to change, to grow out of it, and to seek out what else is there. So if you are ready to step into that and embrace change more gracefully, I invite you to grab your journal or sit and reflect on these simple steps that I have for you today. So these simple steps help you move through change, and they help you grow and embrace more of a positive and proactive outlook on the situations, whether it is internal or it is some of those external things that happen. All right, you got your journal handy? If not, pause this and go grab it or simply reflect. Here we go. These simple steps are here to help you, and here is what I have for you. So number one is that awareness. This is the awareness of what it is you want to change, or what it is that you are willing to step into or out of. Get that clarity on what it is that you're ready to let go of. Once you have this clarity, once you have the awareness, then being specific about it will help accelerate you on your growth. Once you have that awareness, you can intentionally bring the attention to it daily and progressively move towards change. So, number 1 was awareness, knowing what it is. Number 2, willingness. Now, this one is obvious, and I say this to my folks, my clients all the time, is you have to want it. Like, if you want to change, you have to commit to it. You have to be willing to do the work. And this is a huge mindset piece that is necessary to successfully moving through anything. And if you aren't willing to grow, if you aren't willing to be uncomfortable and let go of that familiarity, you are getting in the way of your own growth. And so I see this a lot, like I said, with patients and people wanting to improve their life. But I always have to remind them of this specifically because it's not easy and it is not going to be easy. So this willingness is an internal drive that keeps you in track and on your path to success. So you got to have the willingness. You got to do the work. So number 3, knowledge. Knowledge is power. This is so true in anything that you want to achieve. This is where you get the ideas and you gather research and information, you ask around and you seek out these alternatives for something different. So you have the awareness and you have the willingness, you want to change, you want to do better. Now you have to look at what else is out there, what is the data and the information for you to move through, you to take action steps, for you to try something different on. So now you have your list. I say make a little inventory of your options. Look at your options. Sit down and look at your options with the knowledge. So you've got knowledge there. Number 4, here we go, is application. So you've gathered the information. You're looking at your options. So now try it on. You have an idea of these different alternatives out there. So experiment with it. This is a very, very important step for you to just allow in your own self to just go with the flow. I mean, you are here to experiment, yes, and get messy. You're allowed to move through things and be like, oh shit, wait, that actually didn't work. That didn't feel good for me. I don't like it. Okay. You can't not beat yourself over it. Remember, you're walking through unfamiliar territory, and if you stumble a few times, it's okay. This step here is that process for you to apply and explore what actually feels best. Now, this step here leads to our final step, number 5. This final step is the reassessment piece, or you could say assessment, but it's where you take that time to reflect and assess your action plan. You look at the experiment that you just had and you check in with yourself. What seems to work for you? You look at that list and that inventory you took and you cross off things or you highlight things that worked or didn't work. And then what you do is you continue to refine on that. You try it out and you build those practices, build those habits, those new ideas into your daily life. And as a reminder for anyone, this process is difficult and it takes time. It is not going to happen overnight, and that's kind of the fun of it. This whole process of reinventing yourself or getting yourself familiar in new unknown territory is going to take time, and allowing that, accepting that is what's fun. That's where the creativity comes in. That's where your imagination comes in. And that's where you know as a human being and in the spirit and the soul that lies in you that you are resilient and that you are strong and that you are able to create a reality that you desire. So I want to just, that was a lot, mention here that all of this, take what resonates, leave the rest. But with this in general here is it's really up to you. There should not be any excuses out there that are keeping you from changing and growing and adapting and becoming the best version of yourself. You have the choice and you have the skills to develop commitment and develop consistent effort and develop the willingness. And once you do that, once you start to build up that inner authority and that strength, it's momentum from there. Change becomes easier to you. Change becomes more natural, and you don't get as bent out of shape when something happens. It's that resilience piece. You know when to check in with yourself. Whew, got a lot for y'all. So there we are. That's what I have for you today. My 5 steps to change, and then just really giving yourself a little bit of time to reflect on your journey here and exactly what it is that you're willing to step out of and willing to step into. So I encourage you to be compassionate with yourself on this process, this journey of life and self-reflection. You've come so far and again have endured so much that you can do anything. You can step into the person you want to be, or the relationships, the roles and habits, and bring those into your life by being conscious and applying some of these steps. And not to mention, this process of self-inquiry and introspection really is a part of life, and we're meant to evolve and grow and adapt. Yes, it's okay if you feel stuck at times, and yes, it's okay if it's scary and uncomfortable and sometimes you hit rock bottom, but that's your sign right there that it's time to do the work. That's your sign right there to step into your power. So ask yourself those deep questions, get clear on the direction you want to go in your life, and then embrace it. Apply and assess. So regardless of where you are on your journey, just know that change is inevitable, and it is something that can provide you with more than you can ever imagine. I hope you enjoyed this episode and me sharing about some of my insights around change, and hopefully it can help you move through change more successfully and be more resilient. As always, thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Mahalo. Thank you for listening to The Exposed Show. I am your host, Molly Willson, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please rate and review the show and share it with your network to get more people inspired. These conversations expose you to think outside the box and consider alternative ways of living. Ultimately, they're here to build your perspective to create a life of meaning and more. If you want to learn ways to empower yourself through personal development, health and wellness, spirituality, and relationships, you don't want to miss these shows. Subscribe here or check out The Exposed Show on YouTube to stay up to date on what's next. Again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to your feedback. So I'll see you next time.